All right, guys, welcome to another edition of Demons and Disciples. My name is King Nubian with Men of Purpose, where our abundance is for your lack. I am super excited tonight to talk about this topic. So, the topic of the podcast tonight is marriage contract expiration date. I'm gonna say that one more time because I know y'all probably like, what the blibbity blop did he just say? Marriage contract expiration date. Now, let's dive right in. Before we talk about that per se, the expiration date, let's talk about marriages, right? Let's talk about where they came from and what people's perception of a marriage is. So, most people in this country, a recurring theme you're going to hear on my podcast is that many people do things and subscribe to things that they have no inkling about. They don't know how they arrived. They don't know how they derived. They don't know how they started being privy to this thing or party to it. They just do it because that's what they know. That's what they were taught by their parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, by their friends, their circle of influence, and they don't do any research as to why, even if it doesn't make any sense. So let's talk about it, right? Marriage, the first recorded mention of it was in 2350 BC around Mesopotamia. But before we get into that, let's talk about what the idea or the premise of the practice came from. If you look back at Neanderthal man, if you look back at depending on your version of when mankind began, right? So even if you're a creationist theory person, forget about talking about Darwinism. We're not talking about that. Just imagine ancient man, whatever ancient man is to you. Before there was a mention of contractual connections, i.e. marriage, there were people who connected with one another for survival. You know, people connected with one another to put clothes on their back, to put food in their bellies, just because, you know, if you're a person who doesn't have the ability to hunt, to build homes, to fend off would-be attackers, you're probably going to link yourself with someone who has that ability. If you're a person who, although you may have those other talents, you don't know how to prepare the food that you kill. You don't know how to make the house that you built a home. You don't know how to, you know, do other things. You're probably going to connect with somebody who can bring that to the table. So before marriage became a theme, legally and contractually, it was a concept, it was a goal, but not in the sense that most people think. It was more or less just the idea of being connected with somebody. Now, that's very important because although that isn't what marriage is, and that wasn't the idea behind the people who were connecting, that's kind of what people have come to think of marriage. So we're going to come back to that. That's super important. Don't let me forget it. Now, let's fast forward back to where we were earlier when we talked about 2350 BC, Mesopotamia, where marriage became more official. It was put on the books as a contract of sorts. If you're connected to this person, man, woman, you guys are married, right? Now, the reason why it was contractual and the reason why it was something that was put on the books, I say that intentionally, because when you say something is on the books, that means it's official or legal. And the only way it could be legal or official is if it were backed by an agency of authority, ergo the government, right? Because marriage was about connecting people to property, connecting people to families, trying to ensure certain offspring were allowed to be reared, and essentially wash, rinse, repeat. The same thing would happen to them, so on and so forth. Marriage had nothing to do with ideology. If you don't know what ideology means, that's religion. Marriage has nothing to do with love, commitment, uh, fidelity, stability, stability, yes, take that back. But love, commitment, any type of emotional quotient, nothing to do with that. So let's go a little bit further. First, we're gonna address those who say that marriage is all about showing someone that you want to be with them for the long haul, showing someone that you want to basically take yourself off the market. You have to first understand that people who were getting married, when it became a thing, when marriage was the word, marriage is the concept, marriage is the practice, marriage is the thing to be doing, those who were getting married had nothing to do with who they were marrying. They had no choice in the matter. They didn't even know, and a lot of times had never even met the person before they were told they're going to marry this person. And in a lot of cases, they didn't even lay eyes on the person until the day of the wedding, right? It was a glorified way to be prostituted by your father. Your father determined who you were going to be married to, what that benefit of the marriage was going to entail, how much they had to pay for the bride, and the other person, the other father of the groom, had to weigh whether or not the asking price was worthy. What were they going to get out of the deal? Is the groom marrying into the bride's family for protection, for wealth, for connection? Vice versa. And whoever is marrying into whoever's family for whatever reason, is the benefit going to outweigh the potential fallout? That's what it was about. Nothing to do with the participants in the wedding or the ceremony. Let's talk about some of the things that we do in the ceremony that people think are so important. We have to do this. Oh my God, my day's not going to be right if I don't do this thing. I got to go buy this. I got to go do that. Let's talk about it. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the best man. The best man came about because often a father would recognize that there's a bride over in this place that we don't really get along with their country or their land. But man, if we were to somehow be connected to them, not only would they no longer be our enemy, but we would be able to have far-reaching implications to do X, whatever it is. With them on our side, we can do X. So he would send his army, usually comprised of the groom, to invade, attack, and kidnap the bride from the land that they wanted to unite with. The best man was typically the groom-to-be's best fighter, best warrior. The best man would be in charge of, once they gained the bride-to-be, once they kidnapped her and they secured her, the best man would then be charged with protecting her against her country's soldiers and fighters, and using her, if need be, as a shield so that they wouldn't attack the groom-to-be and the rest of the army as they went back to the groom-to-be's homeland. And then the fathers of the bride and of the groom-to-be would then negotiate a marriage contract by which to unite these lands. Oh, that tripped y'all out, huh? As with everything that I tell you, please don't take my word for it. Do your own research, because I always bring receipts. Never my opinion. This is receipts. And it's going to burn some of y'all up because you don't want to hear it. No, I don't care. I don't care. This, that, and the third. And this is why I'm getting married. And God said, oh, we're going to get to that too. We're going to get to that too. This is only the tip of the iceberg, right? And still the meat is about the marriage contract expiration date. Oh, we're going to talk about that, believe me. But anyway, let's talk about some of the other traditions. Let's talk about the bouquet. Let's talk about the reason why that tradition came. That tradition came about because it was considered an omen of good fortune to have something from the bride if you weren't in the bridal party, or if you weren't invited to the wedding, what you would try to do is to procure something of the bride, maybe her earring, some dressings from her hair, or if all else fails, when she walked past the crowd of her adoring, receptors, people would reach out and rip shreds from her dress, to the point where it almost became where the bride was damn near being assaulted at the end of her ceremony. So some industrious, resourceful bride came up with the idea that instead of putting myself out there for the crowd to rip my dress and all my fixings asunder, I'm gonna have a tradition where we gather everybody around and I'm gonna toss my bouquet. And whoever gets it, that person will be the most fortunate, and that person will have good things come their way, and perhaps that person will find themselves in a favorable contractual alignment of their own. Yeah. Y'all thought it was some love stuff? Y'all thought Cupid came up with this? Y'all thought somebody was shooting imaginary arrows at people saying, ooh, girl, you got the bouquet, you about to get that NBA player? No. They were hoping that their daddy pimped them out to the right dude. That's what that was about. But y'all in here just trying to catch bouquet. What you want to be? You want a pimp now? Is that what it is? You want to turn your dad into a pimp. Bishop Jenkins, go on, pimp your daughter out. She want to be pimped out. She racing for that bouquet because she has no clue what she's doing. She has no idea what the tradition came from. She just want to do it because she saw somebody else do it. That's us though, good old America. We so smart, but we not. We dumb as hell. Let's talk about the bouquet itself. The bouquet originally didn't start off as something that a bride used to symbolize her love, or something that a bride used as an accessory to complement her gown. The bouquet started out as a emblem to ward off evil spirits. It was only certain herbs, wasn't even flowers, herbs and spices and things that people associated with to get the evil spirits off your back, right? Because you don't know this man you're about to marry. You have no idea how this family's going to treat you. You don't know, what it's going to be like when you go into this new land. And back then, a wife was a piece of property. First, she was her daddy's property, then she was her husband's property. So whatever he said to do is what you had to do. So we're going to walk in with this bouquet hoping it's going to let this man treat me well, treat me like he wants to get to know me as a person and not me as a piece of property. That's what the bouquet was about. So when it was tossed to someone else, they were hoping that that bride got good fortune out of that bouquet, and they were going to be able to get good fortune out of that bouquet. And if they were going to be married themselves, and if they weren't, at least give me some of the good fortune for myself to live my life in whatever existence I'm living my life in, right? Now, let's talk about something old, something new, right? Something borrowed, something blue. Or is it something old? So yeah, that's what it is. The rest of that is a sixpence in your shoe. Now, it's pretty self-explanatory. Something old is, something from something from typically somebody else who had a successful marriage, and you want to borrow something from them to carry on into your marriage. Something new, it's just like it sounds. There's no need for me to beat a dead horse there. Something borrowed, or is it the something borrowed? I think it's the something borrowed that's from somebody else's marriage. Something old is something from your past. I apologize there. And then, of course, something blue is just that, something blue. Usually it's going to be to represent something a little bit more intimate. That's why a lot of people now wear garter belts that are blue, or underwear that's blue, or maybe you had a special drink that you shared with your spouse to be that's going to be blue, something like that. And then the last thing is the sixpence in your shoe, because again, marriage is contractual, it has nothing to do with love or ideology. It was for the father to put a sixpence in your shoe to represent all the good fortune and the money he's going to make off prostituting you off to his new family. Yeah, that part. Yeah, I know you hate to hear that. I know you hate to hear it, but it's true, right? So that's what the contractual stuff about marriages, and it also lends to all the traditions and everything that goes into marriage, which you guys are, and you ladies are fighting so hard to do because you think you're doing something holy. You think you're doing something based off love. You're just doing some nonsense. It's a glorified costume party for prostitutes and pimps. Yeah, you hate that. Oh, I know you hate that. But it's true. Don't shoot the messenger, right? Don't shoot the messenger. That message, it hit real awkward when it's cold like that, right? It don't feel right, does it? Because you've been partaking in some B to the S. We're going to let that sit. All right, let's move on. Now, let's also talk more about how the white dress came about. So, the white dress was really popularized by Queen Elizabeth when she did the white dress and the white veil to represent purity, to represent innocence, sanctity, blah, 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 about to throw up. The veils in the dress had nothing to do with that. The veil was to ward off evil spirits and accompany with the herbs and the spices and the sage and all of that made up the bouquet that later became flowers during the Victorian era, when that was the era of art and Renaissance and blah, 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 when everything was pretty and stylish and fashion and vogue. So that was something that kind of permeated, or not even permeated, but really perverted what marriage was originally about. So that veil is nothing innocent. That veil is nothing holy. That veil is nothing sacred. That veil was about trying to ward off evil spirits. Also served a couple of other purposes. One of the purposes that veil served is that it was supposed to keep the person, the bride, from seeing everything that was going on in case she saw some ugly dude that she just couldn't stomach and she wanted to haul butt down the aisle. So usually those veils were so heavy, that dress was so adorned with things that weighted her down, a family member had to escort her down the aisle. Ergo, the wedding procession was born. So family members would then join in and escort the bride, down the aisle. Speaking of down the aisle, walking the bride down the aisle. Your father, I want my daddy to walk me down the aisle. Hey, you don't love me? Let you go get that same bottle. My daddy go walk me down the aisle. Mm-hmm. So you want your daddy to walk you down the aisle? You want your pimp to escort you down the aisle to your new pimp? Okay, let me tell you the heritage on that. So the heritage on that is that your father walked you down the aisle to basically intimidate the groom and the father of the groom so that he wouldn't run off. That was the walking down the aisle. That's where cold feet came out. A lot of the times the grooms would see the shape of this girl. He may not see her face because of the veil, but he would see the shape of this girl. Now you imagine some pumpkin-built girl walking down the aisle. You're a stalwart, handsome, chiseled chin young man who just got told by your daddy you got to marry this person that looks like a walking orb just because her daddy is rich and y'all ain't really that rich. You're a good fighter. They need you in your military, but y'all need their money. Man, you ready to take off. You ready to fight everything your way. But that daddy army got your whole ceremony surrounded. You better not take off. It's going to be a bad day for you if you do that. That's where that tradition came from, walking down the aisle. Nothing to do with love, nothing to do with anything sacred or anything holy, just to ensure that you don't get cold feet and run away, right? So lots of traditions that go along with weddings and with marriage that have nothing to do with what you think they had to do with. Now, remember I told you that we were going to discuss religion, and we were going to discuss ideology. Yeah, man. I know y'all not really ready for this, but we're going to touch on it real quick. So people say, well, I don't get married for all that. I get married because that's what God said, and if you wanted to be sanctified, then you got to do this here. So first of all, marriage was for thousands of years only a practice to secure land, wealth, connection, etc. Then along comes the Catholic Church in the 12th century, and they made marriage a sacrament. What a sacrament means is that they make it an extension of Jesus, which by definition would mean that it's holy, it's sanctified, right? So what they did was take something that was paganized, and then they just told everybody else, oh, it's not holy. Not that Jesus said to do this, if that's what you believe. Not that Muhammad or Buddha or anybody else. Just some men say, you know what? Let's do this. And the reason why they did that is because marriage even then was a failed endeavor. Marriage even then was a failed endeavor. Just in case you don't know the stats on it right now, the success rate for marriage is 50 to 60%. That means that 4 to 5 out of 10 people who get married, hit the brakes, baby. This ain't working for me. Which is going to be something else we talk about here in a minute. All right, so now that you know that, the reason why the Catholic Church made it a sacrament was because there were a lot of women who were in these casual relationships who were being abused, they were being mistreated, they were being lied to, they were being abandoned, and they thought that if they made marriage a holy practice, if they told people that even if you got a civil divorce, because there was divorce even back then, for those of y'all who think divorce is a new concept, it's not. It's been happening because sometimes that pumpkin that was walking down the aisle is just not what you want for the rest of your life, and you just got to bite the bullet and say, I'm out. Not for me, right? So they didn't want that to happen, and they told people that even if you got a divorce, in the eyes of Jesus, God, the Holy Ghost, the Holy Trinity, you were still married, right? That's how that became associated with ideology and religion. Christianity, to be specific. Okay, now that we know that, and you know that Jesus never ordained marriage, never once. Jesus never sanctioned marriage. Jesus never put his name on marriage. And then again, I'm talking to the people who love to throw this up and say that this is why they're doing it. Let's talk about it, right? So, for the longest time, there was a very influential figure, very famous figure, who was slandered, who was vilified, who was editorially tortured, and made out to have her reputation thoroughly besmirched. That woman's name is Mary Magdalene. She was painted out to be a prostitute, a whore, known as the repentant sinner. Only recently, over the last couple decades, have the vast majority of the Christian community come to not just acknowledge, not just to apologize for, but to accept that that was nowhere near her testimony. Not only was Mary Magdalene not a prostitute, Mary Magdalene was highly favored by Jesus. In fact, it's documented that she was the most favored by Jesus, the most trusted by Jesus, and the most counted on and counseled with by Jesus. Now, they talk about Jesus being so fond of marriage, and you're not a real man or a real woman unless you have a lineage, some sort of connection, ergo being married. Well, Jesus himself didn't believe in marriage because there's no documentation that Jesus was ever married. Jesus knew that marriage was a scam. He knew that it had nothing to do with his Father. Again, if that's what you believe. He knew that it had nothing to do with being holy. He knew that it had nothing to do with being sanctified. He knew that it had nothing to do with being committed or loving or faithful. He knew that because he lived among the time when fathers were prostituting their daughters for financial gain, for connection, for a forward of their reputation. And the practice was called marriage. So there's no way he would have signed off on that. No way. You're forgetting that Jesus is the same guy that went downtown in the government and kicked over tables and was getting into fistfights with people. Did you forget about that section in the Bible? Oh, it's convenient that you do because you want to talk about this other crap. I see what you did there. I see what you did there. You don't want to be thorough. You just want to pick and choose what you like. I get it. Because the good stuff sounds good and the bad stuff sounds horrible. I get it, right? Now, since you know that Jesus didn't co-sign on marriage, And the reason why I'm bringing this up, it's important that you know this, because you can't connect your Lord and Savior to something for you that he wouldn't do himself. Because Jesus' whole testimony is that anything that he asked you to do, he would more than do. He would do above and beyond. He would never ask you to do something he wouldn't do. So now you're telling me that he was requiring you to do something that he wouldn't do? Stop the madness. Stop the madness. Now, the church before the 20th century, as presented by the Gnostic and the Apocryphic Gospels, never recognized nor acknowledged Jesus and Mary Magdalene as being anything more than mentor and mentee, or teacher and student, you know. However, during the Gnostic and the Apocryphic period, there were texts introduced by the Gospel of Philip and the Gospel of Mary that states that, I can't remember the Greek word, that refers to Mary Magdalene by Jesus as companion. Now, you can say companion in many different ways. You can say somebody's your companion in that that's your road dog, that's your homie, that's your best girl, you know, that's your road dog, that's your companion. Or you can say companion in that that's somebody who just happens to be with me while I'm going on this trip, while I'm doing this thing, while I'm sitting in this room. Or you can say companion for this is my life partner. This is the person that's traveling through this journey with me as I, you know, experience the highs, lows, ups, downs, goods, bads, etc. The reason why Gnostic and Apocryphic people make the connection that Jesus and Mary Magdalene were more than just teacher and student is because this is also documented. It was often cited and stated that Jesus would often take up close counsel with Mary among the other disciples to the point of kissing her. Now, of course, the church wants to downplay this and say, oh, well, you know, that's what they just did as a form of just close companionship and fellowship and brotherhood. What guys do you know that's tongue kissing each other in the mouth? What guys do you know that's just hey, you know what, Herbie, man, you know, you my homie, man, you my dog. I just want to say, man, you my boy, man. Come on, man, let me get you up. Blah, 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 blah. All right, who's next? Yeah, come on, Jamal. Let me. What? Negative. That's not happening. Imagine what you're gonna do if you see your deacon and your bishop right at the church. Doors at the church are open. I just want to say that what a blessed day the Lord has made for us. Deacon Johnson, come on up here and put your tongue in my mouth right now. What? But what is just brothership? I mean, fellowship and brotherhood, right? That's how dumb the church thinks you are. That they're going to tell you that stuff because it's documented. But they tried to besmirch your name before when they couldn't find those texts. Now that they're out there, they were just good friends, teacher and student, blah, 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 blah. Right? I'm not saying whether he was in a relationship with her or not. What I'm saying, being an objective person with a big old brain sitting on top of my shoulders, if I had to make an assessment as to what their relationship could have been, I would likely lean more toward it being a little more than a mentor and teacher, student, mentor and mentee relationship. Because there's no mention of him kissing Saul, Paul, Peter, and the rest. And maybe Judas wanted him to kiss him, which is why he told him. Maybe that's why he gave him 20 pieces of silver. Jesus over there kissing her, and he won't kiss me. I got something for him, right? Who knows? But I do know this. The rest of them jokers were mad. They were pissed at Mary Magdalene. They were mad at her. So when the Gospels came out portraying her in such an unattractive light, they didn't fight for the truth. They didn't seek to correct that because they didn't like her position with Jesus anyway. Now, enough of that. I talked about that because it had to be talked about in order for me to make this next point. The next point, right? Not point. We're going to say point, right? The people who think that being married was about love, now I have all these reasons that you can go research to know that it's not. About commitment, about fidelity. The people who thought, and probably still think because, that indoctrination is real, bro, that love is about ideology. It's about religion. It's about Jesus. Now you have all of these things to research on your own. Don't take my word for it. And if you ever want to talk to me, bring your receipts, because I don't want to have to hurt your feelings, if you don't bring your receipts. Now you know it's not about that. It's not at all about that. It is a legal contract, period. Since it's a legal contract, since you have to have a license to do it, did you know that in the United States, that your license to marry is only good for 60 to 90 days, depending on where you reside? Meaning that if you got that blood test, if you and that person say, hey, yes, you want to do it, and you don't get married within 60 or 90 days, and you decide to do it on the 61st or the 91st day, then you got to do all that stuff again. But you love each other, right? God said you can do it. God said I can marry her. Okay, we'll try to do it without a contract. I'll try to do it without a license. See what happens. Don't take my word for it. You know what I mean? This is just the law. Oh no, you mean to tell me that they can put a law in the books that governs how I feel? That tells me when I get to love someone and commit myself to them? Clutch my imaginary pearls. Because that's what happens, right? That's exactly what happens if you don't adhere to that 60 to 90 day license. But that's not what we were talking about today. Let's get to the meat of it. I had to give you the backstory before we got here. Let's talk about marriage contract expiration dates. Now, you love somebody. Ooh, you love somebody, they love you. Oh my God, I just love him so much. Every time I look around, all I do is see his face. If somebody walk by and they wear his cologne, I just smell him. Oh my God, I just love him so much. Man, what you over there smiling about, Lamar? Man, shoot, man, I just talked to Shantae, boy, man, I don't know what I'm gonna do, boy. That girl got me wide open, boy. My man, I'm just floating, boy. You can hit me with a bulldozer right now. I wouldn't even feel it, boy. I love that girl, man. Talk to him 2 years later. Talk to him 2 years later. After she had to deal with a couple baby mamas. After he had to listen to the ex talking about how he used to blow their back out. Talk to them in a couple of years, see how they feel about each other. Usually it's not the same. So I'm proposing this. The same way you have to renew your driver's license after a certain time. Same way you have to renew your fishing license, your hunting license. Now those are licenses because you can't commit yourself to the concept of fishing. You can't commit yourself to the concept of driving. You can't commit yourself to the concept of hunting. But you're asked, even required if you have a license, to commit yourself to a person for the rest of your life, when most of the time, the very people that you're asked to commit yourselves to can't even commit themselves to themselves for the rest of their life, right? How many times do you talk to somebody and you say, hey, what's the problem? This is what we said we were going to do. This is how we said we were going to behave. This is the path we said we're going to take. And what's the famous line? People change, Derek. I have changed. I am not the same woman I was at 21, at 36. You are expecting me to do things the same way? No. I mean, I love you, but I'm just not in love with you. I'm not in love with us anymore. But Jeremy only took your word for it because you said that's what you. So Jeremy just asked out now. You just left in the dust because you decided that you wanted to grow. Well, here's the thing. You didn't even decide that. That's called a human condition. You're actually right. Roseanne is actually right. She is going to change. There's no possible way she is going to feel the exact same way at 36 that she was at 21. She's right. But here's what's wrong. You entered into a contract called marriage that didn't take that into consideration. It didn't. It didn't take into consideration that the odds of you two people being the same people at the time you entered into this agreement would be the same. That's why AT&T has been reinvented many, many times over its lifespan. It's a company, right? Because marriage is a union. It's an entity. You're not people anymore. You understand that, right? Once you get married, now you're basically a company. You're an entity that's expected to be exactly the same at day 7,000 as you were at day one. Whereas AT&T, T-Mobile, Bell South, I'm just talking about phone companies, let's expand that. Coca-Cola, McDonald's, the Dallas Cowboys, they're not expected to be the same. The Dallas Cowboys will go and pay a quarterback $145 million today. If he break his ankle tomorrow, you think, well, we can't get no quarterback. We already put $140 million in this guy. We just going to have to wait till he dies. No, they're going to get a quarterback because things change, right? So you married Derek. Derek's not doing what he said he was going to do. Derek's not living up to be the man he pledged to be. And you're expected to stick it out with Derek. Derek is beating your behind every night. Derek is losing all y'all money gambling, on drugs. Derek is out there messing around with every woman he can find, bringing home diseases to you, bringing home babies. Derek just acting a fool, man. Derek should have been born back then when the daddies were pimps. That's what Derek should have been doing. He would have fit in perfectly. But Derek is here now, where you've romanticized this notion of marriage. You got it all messed up thinking it's something that is not. So since Derek didn't get the memo, he's still understanding that, well, marriage ain't nothing but some glorified pimping. And we pimping, baby. That's what he doing, right? You in love. You're like a Disney princess. Your eyes are fluttering. Birds are chirping in your head. You're floating around. Apple pie smells got you floating through there. What? No. Derek is in a real marriage. He's acting accordingly. You are in some imagined state of bliss that doesn't exist. So for you, my idea of marriage contract expiration dates would be perfect. Let me tell you about it. My proposal. Now this is the one thing that's not a fact yet, but I'm working on making it a fact. So this is my perspective. This is my proposal, right? Now, even though this concept is not a fact, and I want to be clear because I always say I speak on fact, everything that I say to support my proposal is a fact. So before you start saying, he a liar too, he ain't talking about no fact, I knew he just like the rest of them ninjas. No. I'm very clear and concise in my communication. I understand that it needs to be direct and it needs to be clear. All you have to do is slow down long enough to listen and you'll understand. The idea that I'm proposing is not a fact. The reasons for my proposal are clear. All right. My proposal is this. Whenever two people get married, we live in a new age, whether it be man and man, man and woman, girl and girl, whatever. Or if you're one of those people who want to be a question mark, whatever. Hey, listen, I don't care, right? You and this person say, or if it's a throuple, you and this person, and these other two people, y'all say on June the 28th, 2026, we decided to come together as a union. On June the 28th, 2028, our marriage contract has expired. We have 30 days after the expiration date to decide whether or not we want to stay together. If even one of us, let's just say it's a couple, let's just take out the throuple for now. If one of us decides that we don't want to do it, each of us get to walk away. There's no alimony, there's no child support. Whatever you brought into it is what you get to leave with. Nobody owes anybody anything, and there's no divorce. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff because people do fall in and out of love. And before you start saying, why would I get married just with the thought of divorce hanging over my head? It's like you're trying to get married without even really trying to make it work. That I never do nothing like that. Well, if you married now, that's all you did. The threat of divorce is hanging over your head by percentages. The stats say that once you enter into a marriage, you are 40 to 50% likely for that marriage to end in divorce. And I'm going to hit you with some even worse news. That's likely to happen within the first 2 years. The first 2 years is when most divorces take place, right? That's how I came up with the 2 years. In case y'all wonder, where did 2 years come from? Well, 2 years. Again, please don't take my word for it. Do your research. like most of y'all don't do. Do your research. So now, at the end of 2 years, you know that you don't have to marry this dude. You don't have to stay married to this dude. You can just decide not to sign it. You don't even have to have a conversation with him. If you're a person who's anti-confrontational, on June the 28th, shoot, right around July the 20th, you just start moving your stuff out. Because remember, you got 30 days. You just start moving your stuff out bit by bit. One day he gonna come home and the whole side of your house just look like a storage room. He gonna be like, where Roseanne go? Derek, it's not you. Y'all know the rest, right? It ain't you, it's me. You ain't gotta tell him nothing. You could be like, give him your forwarding address for where your mail gonna come to now. But you got to walk away, scot-free. Now, in another episode, because all y'all think, well, what about children? And what about, I got all that figured out too. But we're not gonna make this episode long. We're gonna come back to this. I got something for child support. I got something for property. I've got something for animals. I got something for all of that. But today's discussion is about the marriage contract and the expiration date, which I firmly believe is the best solution toward happiness in a situation and a concept that has failed it's flawed from the beginning. It is doomed to fail from the onset. Now, before y'all start saying, well, my grandmama been married for 60 years and they had, let me tell you something about your grandparents that they'll never tell you. Your granddaddy probably got kids all over the place. I'm just gonna go on and tell you that now. Because he ain't gonna tell you, and your grandmama ain't gonna tell you, right? Your aunts and your uncles ain't gonna tell you that they discovered they had cousins and sisters and siblings all over the place. They ain't gonna tell you, that's just gonna be their friend. Remember I told you about my friend Joe? That's her damn cousin or her brother that her granddaddy done fathered from somewhere else. When people don't have options, it's easy to be faithful. You think about all of these successful relationships from the past. You got grandfathers and grandmothers who in the 40s, the 30s, the 20s, even before the 1900s, who've been together for a long time. If I'm a free person, a free black person in the 1800s, early 1900s, even in the 1700s, and I'm around a bunch of white folks who want to enslave me and oppress me, yellow folks, Asian folks, who don't really fool with us because they messing with their own people, Indian folks who don't understand us, and all of the ragtag people who are probably the criminal element, and the only access I have to being with somebody is Mr. Roosevelt, then I'm going to stay with Mr. Roosevelt. Not because I love him for 67 years, not because I want to be faithful to him for 67 years, but what is my alternative? What is my alternative? Now, again, I'm speaking from a factual standpoint. You never thought about how many people who were married from the 30s to the 80s, and all of a sudden in the 80s they get a divorce. The kids are already gone, right? Y'all already ain't being intimate in that fashion no more. Why'd you get a divorce? Because this wonderful thing called computers came around. Dating services came around. All of a sudden you got more access to people. You ain't got to put up with this dude talking to you crazy no more. You ain't got to put up with this woman saying what she ain't gonna do. You ain't got to put up with that stuff no more. Now you got options. So you've been with this person for 60 years because you didn't have no options. And all of a sudden you got options, man, divorce. Man, get me away from this person before I kill her. Now that I know I got choices, I got things I can do. Man, why great-granddad and them break up? I mean, they 90-some years old. Why they break up? Because now he realized he ain't got to stick around for this. She ain't got to put up with this crap. Y'all have romanticized this stuff and thinking that people doing things out of necessity was something that they did out of choice. Those are two completely different things. Now that people have choice, divorce rates are happening sooner. And again, I stand by what I said. Even back in the day, divorce rates were still the same. They were still high. People were just staying married for longer until they finally got tired of it. Now people are getting married in 6 months. They don't like your crap. They out of here. Tinder, bloop bloop bloop. Do you like Cabbage Patch Dolls? I like Cabbage Patch Dolls. Me too. Let's get together, right? And that's why you meet people nowadays and they say, well, tell me about yourself. Well, I'm my 6th ex-husband, right? 6th. And he ain't even scared by that. Well, shoot, I'm just trying not to be the 7th, girl. Hell, let it go. Because he got 6 ex-wives. It's all good. So since you're doing it anyway, why not just make it to where you ain't got to go through all the financial burden? Now, let's talk about why it's important to do that. If you don't have an expiration date on the marriage contract and you just want to get a divorce, everything that you worked for, if you're the breadwinner, so I'm not just talking about guys and all the guys like, yeah, brother, preach on. I'm not talking about just guys. I'm talking about those hard-working sisters. Those I am woman, hear me roar, power brokers of sisters that get out there and make it happen. They are running Fortune 500 companies. They are CEOs and middle-level VPs and senior-level management. They are making the big bucks. And then they marry somebody because they see something in this brother or they want to try to help this brother get on his feet. And this brother is working at, and no disrespect to what I'm about to say, but I'm going to say it, this brother is working at QT or Krispy Kreme or whatever, right? No disrespect to that. Those are honorable jobs. But this brother sees a meal ticket. And after 3-4 years, now he wants to divorce this lady and take her to the cleaners. This girl wants to divorce this guy and take him to the cleaners. He feels like he has to stick around, got to try to make it work, got to go through all kinds of humiliation. She feels like she got to let this guy run up her credit cards and mess her credit up and use her rental property as his house because although she don't want to live with him, she can't just separate from him because she make $1 million a year. And she divorced this dude, now all of a sudden she make $500,000 a year? That ain't right. When if she had a marriage contract expiration date in place, all she would have to do is wait for that expiration date, and 30 days later, he can sign all he wants. She don't want to sign. And then she's free. Right? That could be very beneficial. It could be helpful for a lot of reasons. Because now people don't get to tie you down. People don't get to marry you because you're an athlete. People don't get to marry you because they think you're going to be their benefactor. People don't get to marry you and try to straddle you with their debt, with their bad intentions, and then try and take advantage of you through a divorce. Now you just be like, well, we just gonna wait. I'm not signing the papers. We just wait. Divorce will be a thing of the past. Not only that, look how much money you'll save on legal fees. Look how much money you'll save on court costs. Look how much money you'll save in all kinds of other things. Stress, trips to the psychiatrist, pills, all that stuff. You'll save because you'll be working on your well-being. You'll be working on your mental, your emotional, your spiritual, your psychological, your social well-being, right? And you also won't be buying into all the misguided misinformation about love, love, stability, fidelity, and religion that you did before, because you'll know the truth about it, right? In summation, because I'm going to wrap this up. We can talk about this all day long. In summation, I'm going to tell you this, that if you want to be connected to somebody because you feel a spiritual bond to them, if you and that person are of the same ideological perspective, then go to the gathering places of that ideology. If you're Islamic, go to mosque together. If you're Buddhist, go to temples together. If you're Christian or some other sect of that religion, go to church together. Pray together. Participate in functions that your religious community puts on. That's how you build a spiritual bond. You don't go to a courthouse and ask somebody to slap some legalities on you to handcuff you to a person. That means you're spiritually connected to them. And shame on you for thinking that. Shame on you. The very person that you worship doesn't believe that. Because if he did, he would have been married. I want you to think about that before you say the next stupid thing that you're about to say out of your mouth. That it was about religion. If he thought that, then he would have done it. He is the architect, and according to you, right? He's the architect of religion. That's a whole other discussion that we'll get into, but not this time. But if you truly believe that, then you wouldn't be so indoctrinated by the idea of marriage, right? And for the people who think that marriage is about love, if you love someone, commit yourself to them every day. Don't wait for them to get on their knee and give you a ring. And real quick, let's talk about this ring. Back in the day, Romans used to put a ring, but it was a ring of metal, didn't have diamonds on it. It was a ring of metal, usually copper or whatever the metal was at the time, around the ring finger, known as the fourth finger, because that was considered a vein of love. It was considered the most connected vein on your hand that leads to your heart, right? That's what the ring was about once they start to romanticize marriage. And again, still doing the contractual things, but this is right around modernization starts to come in and people are trying to romanticize love or marriage, right? Trying to put some love into it. Has nothing to do with diamonds. If you really want to know who started the diamond thing, it was De Beers, the jewelry company. They were looking to sell their huge surplus of diamonds because if you do any research, and any person in diamonds, if they're ever being honest with you, will tell you diamonds are virtually worthless. Diamonds are literally a dime a dozen. Diamonds are all over the place. However, to inflate the value and to put a sense of importance on it, De Beers came up with this ingenious campaign that associated diamonds with marriage and marriage with love and love being an expression of how you feel about your betrothed, men to women. And the more you spent on this diamond was to be viewed upon as an investment on this woman. So if you put $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 or more into this diamond, then that's how much you love your wife or your wife to be. Hence, diamonds that were worth about $50 started to sell for somewhere around, I think at that time, an expensive diamond was $5,000 or $6,000. And then they start, now, if you don't buy a woman a diamond that's worth at least $10,000, $15,000, and this is if you broke. This is just if you that guy working at Krispy Kreme, if you that guy that works at QT, you're expected to buy your wife or your fiance a $10,000 to $15,000 diamond. And if you consider the baller, if that thing ain't got a 50 in front of it to begin with, you don't love her, right? It's all a scam. But people will lose good people based on this scammy stuff. Will throw away a good person based on this scammy stuff and tell themselves it's about love. It's about her love for fancy jewelry. That's what it's about. It's about his love to show off, to say, look what I did. Look what I did for her. I put a big old rock on her face. It shine, it sure live. Really? That's what we doing? It's a contest, a popularity contest. Women show up, and the first thing they do at these highfalutin parties, they don't even want to shake your hand with their right hand. They find some kind of reason. They're going to cough with their left hand so that bling can shine. They, oh my God, ooh, I almost fell. Ooh, catch me, right? Because she got a $200,000 ring on her finger. What? But she got a $20 personality. Ain't that some stuff? Her character don't even cost what 2 Starbucks cups of coffee cost. But you put a tiny house on her hand though. Okay, that make a lot of sense. That's us though. And when I say us, I'm not just talking about melanated people, I'm talking about American people. The absolute dumbest people on the planet, America, with 3 Ks. But in summation, I just want you guys to understand that this proposal that I'm presenting is designed to help alleviate stress. It's designed to help people understand that if you got yourself into something that you thought you were ready for 2 years prior, you should be able to get yourself out of that thing when you realize that it's not what you want for the rest of your life. My name is King Nubian. This has been a Men of Purpose 365 production where our abundance is for your lack. This podcast is entitled Demons and Disciples. Sometimes you'll see me as a disciple. Often you'll see me as a demon. And the reason why we chose that title is because everybody who comes on this show is a disciple in their own way. And every one of these disciples face their demons. Demons are traumas, demons are trials, demons are tribulations that we go through in life. It's not a personification, it's not a person, it's not an entity. It's an ideal that every day as human beings, we disciples have to battle with demons. So keep that in mind as you think about this topic and many more that I've discussed and many more that we'll discuss in the future. And I look forward to speaking with you again.